All right. Good morning, everyone. This is Jeff Scott of Rankin Technical College. And, excuse me, and this morning I lectured for approximately 2 hours and 10 minutes for the AWD1000 Online Web Development Technologies class. All right. Somehow during the lecture, my internet connection dropped. And when it dropped, it literally stopped saving anything from today's lecture, which doesn't make me happy and probably doesn't make you happy either. So what I want to do is explain to you what I'm going to do because I'm re-recording this. All right. So I'm going to first go over the first JavaScript hands-on test, meaning if you have not yet turned in that test, you're getting a 0 on it. That's the best I can do. And we gave that test out. It must be now going on 3 weeks ago. All right. So after we get done with that, we'll go over the JavaScript and jQuery section of our textbook. We'll finish that up, chapters 10 and 11. And tomorrow we'll begin creating a website from scratch that utilizes both JavaScript and jQuery. All right. Your chapter 6 and 7 written tests and homework and your hands-on test were all due yesterday. If you have not turned it in, please get it in as soon as possible. The plan is that today, all right, I will be going over hands-on test number 1. Tomorrow, we will be working entirely on this website. We'll get as much done as we can. On Wednesday, I'm going to go over hands-on test number 2, and then we'll continue on with the website, finishing that up by Thursday. Friday will be our typical lab day. Monday of next week, which is the 13th, I will go over the one that's on the screen right now, JS hands-on test number 3. So if you don't have JS hands-on test 1 in by now, you're going to get a 0 on it. If you don't have JS hands-on test number 2 in by Wednesday, you'll get a 0 on that. And if you don't have JS hands-on test number 3 in by 8:05 a.m. a week from today, you'll get a 0 on that one as well. I'm trying to be as fair as I can and still go over this material with you. Finally, again, we have only a 4-day week this week. Rankin closes on Veterans Day or for the Veterans Day observance. Since it's a Saturday this year, it'll be closed on Sunday. Or I'm sorry, it'll be closed on Friday. All right, the other thing is, I did attempt to lecture this morning. All right. And as it says on here, my internet connection kept going in and out all morning. Well, unknown to me, one of those times when it went out, it dropped all of the students. So that's why I'm re-recording right now. I'm using a product called Camtasia, and you can see right here that the timer is going. I'm going to turn that off as soon as I start actually going over the material. But the good news, as it mentions, is Camtasia, it's basically a standalone product, so I don't need an internet connection. I don't have to worry about this going down. That's the good news. The bad news is there's no camera feature or functionality that Camtasia has like Teams does, so no one can actually watch me while I'm recording because I'm using not a group version of this, but a singular version. All right, so I hope to have this recording out as soon as possible. All right, so again, right now I'm going to go over hands-on test number 1. When I did this, all right, I can't find my key for whatever reason, so I redid it right before class. And rather than doing it kind of the way they did it in the book, I just used a lot of alerts and stuff. So the logic is still there, but the way that I did it is going to be a little bit different, just so you're aware of that. I promise you, on Wednesday, when we go over that broken test, the thing with the video games on it, I will do exactly what was in the test or on the test. Okay, so with that, let's just get started. Let me minimize that. Let me close this, and we will get started. All right. So this morning, I went back and I did this. I redid the test. And I'm going to now redo it again. So I'm going to take what I did this morning, which is called JS Hot number 1. I'm just going to save it in one of my folders, and I'm going to start again from scratch. Well, it says that it's still open. It shouldn't be, but it says that it is. Let's try it one more time, and now it's gone. So I'm going to make a new folder, and just to be sure, I'll call it JavaScript -hot number 1. Okay? All right. So what I'm going to do to try to make my life a little easier so you don't have to watch me doing a lot of copy and pasting, I'm going to set up this and then do a bunch of copying. So in fact, I'm not even going to go into code yet. In here, I'm going to come in and I'm going to create a folder, and I'm going to call it, what did we call this on the test? Challenge. So I'm going to call this challenge 1. All right. And then I'm going to open that up. And in there, I'm going to quickly add an index.html file. All right. And I'm going to quickly add a JS folder in there as well. And in that JS folder, I'm going to add a file that's called scripts.js. Whoops, I don't want another folder. That's on me. Get rid of that folder. All right, so in my JS folder, I'm going to make a new text document called scripts.js. All right, now just bear with me for a second while I do this. I'm going to open up this one in code. I'm going to come in code, and in my index file, I'm going to do my exclamation point tab, and I'll change this to challenge number, and I'll put the number after that. And down here, I'm going to say script source equal JS slash scripts, and I'll call it the same thing for each one. Now that I've got that, let me do a file save all, and let me go and take my challenge 1 folder, copy, paste, 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 paste. All right. So this I'm going to use then for, actually there's 5 of them, not 6. So that'll be challenge 5 in just a minute. That'll be challenge 4 in just a minute. This will be challenge This will be challenge 3. And finally, the last one will be challenge 2. All right, so I now have all my folders with all my stuff in them. Let's go back to here now and actually open this up in code so I can start going here. All right, there we go. All right. I'm going to do these very slowly, very hopefully succinctly, and it'll make sense to everybody. So my first one, in the index, I'll have to change this to challenge number 1. All right. And I'll save that. And now I want to open up the JavaScript file, scripts.js. So they're both open now. And what I'm going to do for each one of these, it's not that I have to, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to add the actual test description for each one of these that I'm creating. So let me go back to the file here, and we'll start with number 1. All right, create an array named favorite movies that holds 3 of your personal favorite movies. I don't care that much about that, so Ask the user to enter their favorite movie into a text box. I just used a prompt. Have them click a button. I didn't even have them do that. All right. Again, I actually did this, but I can't find the doggone, oops. I can't find the doggone test key, and I just don't have it in me to do it again right now. All right, so those are my requirements. Guess I mean, hit enter again. All right, so to start with, I'm going to come in and I don't have, well, let's make one. Let's make one. All right. No, we're not even going to do that. I don't need any constants. All right, but I'm going to create a couple variables. So declare and initialize program variables. And I'll have, let's have 3 of them. Let favorite movies equal an array. You can put any movies in here you want. All right. I like sports movies, so let's put in Hoosiers and Field of Dreams and finally we'll put in The Natural. All right, so those are our 3 movies as we start the program. All right, I'm going to have a Boolean variable in here that's going to be called enter another movie. All right, and I'm going to set it equal to true, assuming I want to add in additional movies. I will have one more variable that I'm going to be called new movie. Now, I don't have any yet, so I'm just going to set that to the empty set. All right, so this will be an array of 3 of my favorite movies. This will be a Boolean variable that asks whether or not I want to add another movie. And then finally, this will be the new movie to add. Okay? All right. So I don't know how many movies I'm going to want to add. Since I don't know how many movies I'm going to want to add, since I do not know that, all right, I can't use a for loop in here. So what I'm about to do, I could use a while loop to keep going through, or I could use a do while loop. All right, so I'm going to use a while loop, and I'll allow the user to enter more movies if desired. How about this? Enter as many more movies as they would like to. Okay? So I'm going to put a while loop in here. It's going to say while enter another movie. And remember, that is a shortcut. That's the same thing as saying while enter another movie equal true. That's the same thing. All right, so while this is true, while I want to keep entering stuff, well, the first thing I'm going to do is prompt user to enter another movie. So I'm assuming you want to add at least one more. Okay? So new movie, which we set up above, that's the new movie to add. So new movie equals prompt. Please enter another favorite movie. Okay? So we're asking the user to enter another of their favorites. Now, what if they don't? What if they leave it empty? Well, I'm going to check for that. So while new movie, and I'm going to try to use the trim. I didn't do it before, but dot trim. So that removes any leading or trailing spaces. While that's equal to nothing, meaning we entered nothing in there. All right, I'm just going to ask them to do it again. So I'm going to grab this. And we'll, just so they know, we'll say input cannot be empty. Please enter another favorite movie. I don't know if that \n will work in there or not, but that's okay. All right. So we've got that. So when we get down to here, they will have entered a movie, because otherwise they're stuck in here until they do. So add the new movie to the favorite movies array. All right. So I'll say favorite movies, dot length. Now remember, if I have an array with 6 elements in it, they are in there as elements 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So even though it's 6, if I put a new one in, it'll go into element 6, which is what I'd want. So that's equal to new movie. Oops, equal. So again, that will copy whatever I inputted in here into the new movie. All right. Then ask user if they wish to enter more movies or another movie. All right. So let's make a couple more variables, and we'll make them up here because I've been putting them all up here. So we'll have 3 variables here. This will be response to user running program adding another movie or not. And we'll call that again. We'll just set that equal to nothing. All right. Then we're going to have another one that we're going to call first character. So this will be the first character of again. And I'll call it first char. And again, I'll set it equal to nothing. Okay? Why did I do that? So now I can come down here and I can say again equal prompt, do you want to enter another movie? And again, we'll put in yes or no. And we'll default it to yes. All right, so that should allow them, if we'll run in a minute to see if it works. A couple more lines to add. So that's again. So first char, the first character, will be equal to, again, dot char at 0. So it's the first character, dot to uppercase. So it'll uppercase it. And if that first character is not equal to a y, we'll quit the program run. And we'll do that by saying enter another movie equal false. Remember, that enter another movie is a Boolean that we'll use to say, do we want to enter something or do we not want to enter it? Finally, print out all movies on screen. All right, that's everything. So taking it from the top. All right. So here we're declaring and initializing first an array of 3 of my favorite movies. All right, so I put in 3 sports movies, Hoosiers, Field of Dreams, and The Natural. All right. Then I created a Boolean variable that's going to be used to see whether or not I want to continue. That's my program continue variable. It's called enter another movie. All right. Then the next one, new movie, is the new movie I want to add. Well, when I ask the user, do you want to enter another movie or not, I'm going to get the response in again. And it should be a Y or an N. But since people are human, they might type in yes, they might type in no, they might type in something else. So this is just the first character of this. All right, then as it says, allow user to enter in as many movies as they would like to. So as long as they want to enter more movies, we prompt them. What is your favorite movie? We make sure if it is empty, we prompt them again. So if no input, prompt user to enter again. All right. Then once they get down to here, we add that new movie that they wanted, that they just entered, into our favorite movies array. And we ask the user, do you want to enter another movie? If they don't, we quit. Otherwise, we let them. Once they've quit and they're all done here, they're all done entering movies, we print them all out. Let's see whether or not, with what we have right here, whether or not it works. All right, so right now it should come up and immediately prompt me. There we go. So let's put in here, let's put in nothing. All right, input cannot be empty. Please enter another movie. Okay, good, that worked. So let's try, I don't know, let's try some other ones. How about The Terminator? All right, do I want to enter another movie? Yes. Let's enter 2 more. Bullet. Yes, I want 1 more. And The Quiet Man. So I put in 3 more. Do I want to do another one? No. So there's a list of favorite movies, and what's not showing? My favorite movies. All right, so we'll have to fix that. Is there an error in here? Yep, I is not defined. So I was trying to use LCV, but I must have used I someplace. I did, right there. That should be LCV. So let's run it one more time. There we go. Should work now. Should. All right. So again, we put in nothing the first time. We get our error message. Boom. Bullet. Yes. The Terminator. Yes. And The Quiet Man. Any more? No. And there they are. A list of my favorite movies. Well, this, I should have had a line break there, and I didn't. But Field of Dreams, The Natural, and here's the ones I added. Wait, we had Field of Dreams, The Natural. We lost Hoosiers, so let's see if we can fix that. Oh, I never ended that. There we go. That should help. One more time. All right. So we've already got our 3 favorites in there right now. Okay. So we'll add nothing. We get the error message. All right. Again, we will put in The Quiet Man. The Cowboy, The Last Cowboy. All right. And there we got them. Hoosiers Field. We didn't get the last one. Good gravy. I don't know why this would be such a problem, but I know what it is, and we're going to fix it right now. All right, we've now got 3 movies in there. If we put in nothing, we get an error message. So let's put in our 3 movies. They will be, number 1, we would just say new movie number 1. You want to do it again? Yes. New movie number 2. Do I want to do it again? Yes. New movie number 3. We'll put in one more. So yes, new movie number 4. Do I want to do it again? No. So what should come up is a heading that says my list of favorite movies. Then it should say Hoosiers, Field of Dreams, and The Natural, followed by, each on their own line, new movie number 1, new movie number 2, new movie number 3, and new movie number 4. And indeed, that's what I get. So that is the first one. All right, sorry, this is taking more time than I thought it would. Yeah. All right, so that's the first one. So let's go in and do number 2. All right, now I can stop this run and come back to here. So I'm going to do a file here, save, close that, another file here and save and close that, and now go to number 2. All right, so that was challenge 1. Let's go to challenge 2. We'll bring up the index. We'll bring up the script file. Why it does that, sometimes it doesn't let me put them both in here, but we'll get it. I don't know why it does that, but it does. All right, let's do the index first. The only thing I have to change here is this is now challenge number 2. Okay, so let me do a file, save all. And let me open this. There, we got them both. Okay. So again, just like I had been doing, I'm going to start by coming in here and putting in the requirements for the test problem. You didn't have to do that. You wouldn't be expected to do that, but I'm doing it like this anyway. So this is challenge 2. This is that age verification problem. All right, ask the user to enter their age in a text box. Again, I used not a text box, but I just used a prompt. If the user is 21 or older, display a message saying, "Welcome to the venue." If the user is under 21, give them a message saying that you're not old enough to enter this venue. If the user does not enter an integer value, display a message. That message should say, "Please enter your age." Apologize, my neighbor's mowing his lawn. And finally, if the user enters an age, this is like a range validation. that's either below 1 or greater than 200, give them a message that says age out of range. All right. So again, let's come in here and let's do this one. Here I did use my share, I guess at least, of constants. So let's start with declare and initialize program constants. All right, so the first one, const WTTV, is just going to be a string, which is welcome to the venue. All right, the second one will be YNOE, which means you're not old enough. The third constant will be PEYA, and that'll be for please enter your age. And the fourth one will be AOOR, which will be equal to age inputted out of range. In addition, I have 4 program variables. They are age, which I'll just set equal to 0, just kind of like we did before, again, which we'll set equal to the empty string. First char, just like before, which again will be equal to the empty string. And run again. And this, again, in the last program, we call that enter new movie. We'll call this enter new age. How about enter another age? There we go. So that's what we have in there for both our program constants and our program variables. All right, so let's come in and write this. So while, what that is, I don't know. While enter another age. So while I want to do another age, all right, and I'm going to say here age equals parse int prompt please enter age, and we'll put in here between 1 and 200. All right, and we will put in there, we'll put 21 in as a default age. We can put it in double quotes or leave it out just to show you it'll work either way. All right, so we got that. Now, when we did this last time, I put another while loop in here. And we could do that, but instead I'm just going to check. So if is NaN age, so if we put something non-numeric in there, or we left it empty, so age dot trim equal nothing. So we'll call this in here, let's put in a comment that says validation check number 1. So if that's the case, we want to show them this message. Please enter your age. Okay, so if that's the case, alert, please enter your age. All right, so that's the first validation check. Then we've got validation check number 2. So else if the age is less than the minimum age, so if we put in something less than 1, or the age is greater than the maximum age, which we set up equal to 200. So this is a range check. So if we put in something out of range, we'll do another alert and we'll say age out of range. All right, and we've got one more validation check. And that is, so if the the age is less than, did we put this on up here? No, we didn't. All right. There were a couple more constants in here I forgot to put in. Let's put them in. So const min age equal 1, const max age equal 200, and finally const legal, we'll call it legal age, and that is 21. All right, so we just added these three things in here. Now when we come in and check min age and max age, they'll be working just fine. Otherwise, if the age is less than the legal age, all right, then we want to give them a message that says you're not old enough. So we want to do an alert with you're not old enough. Otherwise, they can enter. They're between 21 and 200. So we'll do an alert that says welcome to the venue. Just like that. All right. And then finally, down at the bottom here, okay, like we did before, I'm going to say again, equal prompt, run program again. And again, yes or, oops, no. And we will give it a yes for our default value. And again, equal again dot to upper, hello, dot to uppercase. And finally, first char equals again dot char at 0. We just want that first character. And if that first character is not equal to a Y, we're done. So this, what did we call this at the beginning? Enter another age equal false, because there's nothing more to do. So let's try this one. File, save all. Let's go back and run it. Now, when I did this in class earlier, I'd made some mistakes. Hopefully I didn't now, but we'll see. Well, it's not showing us anything. That's never a good sign. So let's go in and inspect and see if we've got an error. It says we don't. Please enter an age between 1 and 200. I think I have the same error I had before, and that is remove that there and put that here. All right, I think that'll fix all of our problems, but let's see. It did not. Of course not. We're going to get it. I'm not worried at all. All right, it's not showing us any errors. All righty. So let's start breaking it down. While, enter another age. Ooh, I never made that true. As I should have. So it was failing right there on that test. All right, that's a Boolean variable, and I didn't make it a Boolean. In fact, let's put some more comments in here. All right. I think these are self-explanatory. You know, welcome to the venue, you're not old enough, etc. This is the minimum allowable age to input. This is the maximum allowable age to input. This is the legal age to enter the venue. All right. So this is the inputted age. This is what I like to call the program continue variable. This is the first character of again, and I never even set up again. So again is answer to the question, run program again or not. All right, and run again. So we've got again and we've got run again. All right, so let's get rid of this run again. We'll just use it again. All right, so here we're inputting the age. So this is validation check number 1. Input non-numeric or empty. This is validation check number 2. Input out of range. In other words, less than 1 or greater than 200. This is validation check number 3. Input between 1 and 20. All right. And then finally, this is a valid age between 21 and 200 was inputted. All right. Ask user if they wish to run program again. If true, do not run program again. All right, that's a lot of documentation. Never hurts. So let's run the program again and now see what it looks like. All right, so please enter that age. If I put in nothing, please enter your age. If I put in something non-numeric, again, whoa, it didn't like that. Age.trim is, it doesn't like trim, and I don't know why trim works sometimes and not others. Not sure why. But one thing I should do anyway, and I didn't do it in the first program, and that is at the very top up here, let's put in our use strict. All right, and I'm going to get rid of the trim. I don't want to waste anybody's time on that, so. All right. If is not a number or age is equal to nothing. All right, we'll do it like that. Finally, let me grab that use strict, copy that, and let's put it into the first one as well. This is the first one we wrote. So now we've got that in there. And I'm going to close that because we don't need that. All right, now let's run it again and see what it looks like now. So file, save, and let's run it. All right, so if we put in nothing, please enter your age. If we put in non-numeric, please enter your age. If we put in a value that is out of range, so 0, age inputted is out of range. If we put in another one out of range, 201, age inputted is out of range. If we put in a value that's too low, you are not old enough. If we put in 20, which is right near the end, it says welcome to the venue. Something's wrong there. We'll have to fix that. Let's try it again, and let's put in 10. And it says welcome to the venue. What that means is I'll show you my screw up. All right, we'll look at it right now. And that is, and I don't know why I'm having problems with this, but it's where I'm putting this. Let's not even put in this. Let's just get rid of that and do it like this. So please enter your age. We won't have any default. Should work now. I've tested all the other ones. I've tested all the errors. So let's try 19. You're not old enough. 20. You're not old enough. 21. Welcome to the venue. 12. You're not old enough. 0. Out of range. 200. Welcome to the venue. 201. Oops, I did it when it asked me if I wanted to run the program again or not. 201, age is out of range. So that's the second one. So we now have 2 out of these 5 programs completed. All right. The next one is the song lyrics program. You may or may not be aware of this, but there is a song by a group called Three Dog Night, and I would guess it would be in the 70s, that was called One. What year did One by Three Dog Night come out? I think it was Three Dog Night. Three Dog Night. One by Three Dog Night. Song facts. Well, it looks like 69. So the song is about 54 years old. So I can see why most people would never have heard of it, if that's your case. Alrighty. And let's go to that one then. So again, I'm going to come in here and do a save. So I've got everything. Close this, and then do another save, and close that. All right, so the first 2 are finished. So challenge 1 can be closed. Challenge 2 can be closed. And let's go to challenge 3. Here's the index. Again, I'll put in here challenge 3. And we will add our scripts file as well. Okay. Now, I did this one in many ways similar to the one you just saw. So if it looks familiar or similar, that's why. All right, so this is number 3, challenge 3. So let's grab everything again. And even before we do that, again at the top, we'll put in our use strict. All right, now we'll put this in. Pretty it up just a little bit. And I'll just keep these all together because those are inputs. A string, you should display, please enter a number, not a word. All right, for all other input, say you didn't enter a valid number. All right, so that's all of our requirements. So let's begin writing. Okay. Again, I used a bunch of program constants and a few variables. And we've got one I called input, which was please enter a number between 1 and 3. 1 is equal to 1 is the loneliest number that you'll ever do. 2 can be as bad as 1. It's the loneliest number since the number 1. Looks like I missed a semicolon there, even though that would not stop the program from working. All right. 3. There is no 3. STR, so that's any number other than 1, 2, or 3. So we entered something non-numeric. So it's please enter a number, not a word. And in is you didn't enter a valid number. All right. Plus we want in here our minimum number, and that's 1, and we want our maximum number, and that's 3. All right, so those are our program constants, and then I have the same variables that we had before. So you don't have to watch me type that. Let me grab those from challenge 2. So let me grab these. And we'll close that. All right, so these will be our variables. I'm just going to say enter another number. All right, so this will be declare and initialize program constants. Sorry, these are the variables, not the constants. All right, so we've got all that done. Okay. All right. So that's everything. So we want to put the user again in a loop to ask if they want to run the program again. So while enter another number, which again is the same thing as saying while enter another number is true. So number equal parse int prompt. All right. 1. Hopefully I did that right. We'll know in a moment. So again, if is NaN number, or number is empty. We're going to do an alert that says str, which meant that you please enter a number, not a word. Else, well, I know they've entered a number. I don't know what it is yet, but I know they entered a number. So I did a switch here on the number. Switch on number. If it's a 1, so case 1, I'm going to do an alert that says 1. 1 is the loneliest number, and break. If it's a 2, I'm going to do an alert that says 2, which is 2 can be as bad as 1. It's the loneliest number since the number 1, and break. If it's a 3, I'll alert 3, which says that 3, there is no 3. Okay, and then break. And then finally, to be consistent, we'll put in a default. And we'll do an alert that says IN. And again, we'll break. And that IN is you didn't enter a valid number. Okay. And again, let me just copy over from what we had before. That's this stuff here. I'll have to make one change, but it's no biggie. All right, ask the user if they want to run the program again. Again, first char. This was enter another number. All right. And hopefully that's got everything in there, and hopefully everything is correct. Let's run it and find out. All right. Enter a number between 1 and 3. 1. Well, we didn't get anything, so that's an error, so let's fix that. Number is not defined. I did not. So let number equal 0, and that is the number input. Okay. All right, so 1. 1 is the loneliest number that you'll ever do. Run it again. 2. 2 can be as bad as 1. It's the loneliest number since the number 1. Run it again. 3. There is no 3. Run it again. 4. You didn't enter a valid number. If we leave it empty, please enter a number, not a word. If I put in there hello, I should get that same message. Okay, and it all works. All right, so that's the third one out of 5. The last 2 should take very little time because they're much easier programs. So let's go down to those. And I'm not going to even let the user run this again because all we want to do is print out the numbers between 1 and 100, all the odd numbers. So, like I said, I'm not going to give the user the opportunity to do that. So let's again do a file save, close this, one more file save, and close that. Now we're ready to look at number 4. So let me close 3. So we now have challenges 1, 2, and 3 done. For 4, all right, this will then become challenge 4. And for the script, not much to this, but let's copy because we've been trying to be consistent here. So use strict. So again, for number 4 of this challenge, there it is. Print out the odd numbers starting at 1 and going through 100 using a for loop. Okay, pretty simple problem, really. I did make 2 constants. You didn't have to. So, const start value equal 1, const end value equal 100. I had one variable that I declared locally here, so declare and initialize program variable. Let str equal the empty set. Str is going to hold my output. And this is a simple for loop. So for let our loop control variable LCV equal start value. And while LCV is less than, what did we call it? Oh, we called it end value. Add 2 to LCV. Then when we're all done, do an alert of str. Let's see if that works. And there's our odd numbers between 1 and 100. 2 other easy enough ways to write this, and we'll write it both ways just so you see it. All right, so that's with a for. So number 1, solve with for loop. All right, let me just copy this down. Number 2 will be to solve this with a while loop. All right, so I'm going to come in here and do this. Get rid of these. All right, so I'm going to come in here and do this. I'm going to say let str equal start value. Oh, I've already got a let up there, so I don't need the word let. Str equals start value, so while and I'm going to change that in a minute. So while, let's make that LCV. So let LCV equal start value, and while LCV is less than end value, we don't have anything we have to put at the beginning. So while it's this is wrong. I don't know how to write that like a for loop. All right, so while it's less than end value, and now I've got to say LCV plus equal to. So when you look at these, there's not a lot of differences between them, except here I'm initializing, I'm testing, and I'm incrementing in the same line. Here I'm initializing on a different line, I'm testing on a different line, and I'm incrementing on a different line. It should be the same unless I miswrote something, but I don't think I did. And again, there's our odd numbers. So let's write it one last time, and we will write it using a do-while loop. Check my time here. I'm doing okay. All right, so let me copy this down. And again, we'll take this one that's here, and I'm going to comment all this stuff out. All right, so this will be number 3, and this one will be solved using a do-while loop. All right, so again, we'll initialize it here. This I'm going to pull out, and I'm going to put the word do in there. And I'm going to put my while back in here with a semicolon on the end. Other than that, I think it's the same. So let's again check. Just make sure I didn't make any mistakes. And there they are, our odd numbers between 1 and 100. So that's done again using doing this 3 different ways, just so you could see all of them. All right, so we did this using a for loop, a while loop, and a do while loop. We do a file save on here and close, and another file save and close. All right, and then finally let's close challenge number 4, and let's open the last one, which is challenge 5. All right, so there's our index. I don't know why it does that. There we go. So with our index, let's make this 5. That's all we have to change in there. Let's go back to our script file here. So again, this will be the last one that we have to take a look at. Alrighty. Again, let's do our use strict at the top. Let's close that. Open this, bring it up to challenge 5. Copy that. Paste. We don't need that. Challenge 5. Print the following numbers between 1 and 100 using a for loop. Okay, there that is. Again, fairly at least simplistic project or app to write. Again, I did have 2 constants. All right, so there's it'll be start value, which was 15, and end value, which was 100. We'll also have that string like we did before, so declare and initialize program variable. So let str for string equal nothing. And finally, we'll put it into a for loop again. So for let LCV equals start value, LCV less than or equal to, it doesn't matter, end value plus plus fact, if I did that, it would just add that. So I want to say LCV plus equal 15. So that'll add 15 to it every time. All right. So we've already got a 15 here, and then when we add 15 to it, it should be 30, then 45, then 60, then 75, then 90. Okay. So let's print this out, or set it, str plus equal LCV plus a blank. And finally, we will alert the LCV. All right, that is everything. We're getting nothing, so let's figure out why. Not like that, we won't. LCV is not defined. All righty, then let's define it. It's not LCV we want, it's str. All right, so file save all. Let's run it again. And there's our numbers, 15, 30, 45, 60, 75, and 90. So that, even though it took longer than I wanted it to, is how we do test number 1. All right, so I'm going to jump into the book, and did I close that? No, I didn't. So we're going to now cover chapter 10 and chapter 11. All right, they're both fairly short chapters. The whole thing collectively is about 50 pages. So let's jump into chapter 10. And again, we should be at about an hour and, okay, good. All right, how to work with forms and data validation. Now, the first part of this chapter talks about forms, how they're used, etc. And this is all going to be review because it's all stuff that we've talked about before. They do mention, it says to get data from a user, you use HTML to create a form. Nothing new there. Then the user can enter data into a form, and typically she or he clicks on a button to submit that data to a web server for processing. Again, nothing new. Before the browser submits the data, though, it typically uses JavaScript to validate the data. Yeah, on the client side. In this chapter, you'll learn how to use jQuery to work with forms and some basic skills for using JavaScript and jQuery to validate data in the browser. So it's broken up into 3 sections. The first section we'll go through fairly quickly because it's an intro to forms and controls, which you've already had. The second section we'll go through in a little more depth and breadth of coverage, how to use jQuery to work with forms, and finally, again, we'll spend a little bit of time on the last section, a validator application. Alrighty. So if we jump in here, what you see is what? The form, the picture that you see on the top of the screen here on page 309, the code for that is shown down below. All right. Now you'll notice there's an action on there, which means when you click this submit button, we want it to go here. We're also using a get, which means that that information that we send from there will be up in the query string, so it will be shown in the address bar. All right. We gave our one input an ID of email address, the second input an ID of first name. All right, and our button an ID of join list. So as you look in here, name is most often used with server-side code. Of course, it is used with client-side code when you are doing things like creating a group of radio buttons that you want to function as a group. You give them all the same name, but different IDs. All right. Next, action. As it says, that's basically the file that you want to run once you click the submit button. Finally, method, get, and post. maybe you've seen this already, that if I go out to, let's see if we can get one. I'm going to go out to Rankin's website. So https://rankin.edu. All right, now if I go out there and I'm going to choose something, so let's see, how about apply to Rankin, and we'll go to start your application. And I'm going to go to transition to a new career. Not a great example, but let's see. Well, here is a form, and you'll notice that if I come in here and I leave it all blank and I try to submit, I'm going to get error messages. All right, up here it's basically saying you haven't put enough stuff in yet to submit. Let's look at a better example. So I'm going to go to Amazon here. All right, and under Amazon, I'm going to go to Books. And I'm going to put in here, I don't know, jQuery. Now, you may or may not be able to see this, so I'm going to highlight this and bring it up in a little bigger text. Don't know if I need that or not, so let me bring it up here. All right. Everything that comes after this question mark here, all the stuff after it is known as a query string. All right. And what we have here is it's got K equals jQuery and ampersand. All right. And that's probably in there someplace. That's what I'm looking for. All right. And then it's going to basically show me what it's going to run to show me those books. Well, what if I put this in and hit enter? Now I get a different one of these. You just saw that one. Let me hit enter a couple times. And now we get this one. Now, what's different? Well, when you look here, this CRID as opposed to here, now this is for an actual book. All right, or I'm actually doing a thing for an actual book. So let's say I want this book here. All right, now I'm going to have yet another thing that's going to come in here. Okay. The point is, after the question mark on each of these, all right, it's giving me a query string. And that query string I can basically dig down through there and find out different pieces or bits, whatever you want to call it, of information. Let me close that. I don't need it anymore. All right. All right, let's continue on then. The method is a get or a post, and again, to review. All right. When you can see the information up here, it's a get. When you can't, it's a post. The get is typically used if you're going to use that as a submit method. Then you typically use the get when you don't have any kind of sensitive information, because it goes right into the query string as you saw it. The post, on the other hand, if you're asking for passwords or social security numbers or credit card numbers, etc., and you are going, the method is post, you don't see it up here in the query string. It's basically hidden in the HTTP header. So this chapter is starting to talk about data validation. And as you can see from the third of the 5 bullets here, data validation refers to checking the data collected by a form to make sure it is valid. All right, and complete data validation is always done on the server. Typically, you do all or at least most of the validation also on the client side. All right, the reason it must be done on the server too is that it is possible for a user to either turn JavaScript off or make JavaScript think that it's off. All right, so you want to make sure you run through, even though a lot of the tests will be the same, that you run through it on the server side. As far as the HTML controls for working with a form, again, we have talked about these already. Email, all it does is it verifies that the email address that you put in is a valid email address. It does nothing else. All right, it doesn't say does somebody exist by that name? No, it's just was it formatted correctly. The URL is typically one of three values, HTTP, HTTPS, or file FTP. And again, it is which of those protocols you're using to work with the files. Tel is for a telephone number. There's no validation done by the browser, and it may or may not work the way you think it would. Excuse me. Number is a number field, and you'll notice with number, with range, with date, and with time, they all say when supported. If you want to make sure that something is supported, of course, you can use caniuse.com to verify that. All right. But number will allow you to only input numbers. In other words, you don't have to check for non-numeric input anymore. You can set a minimum and a maximum, and it'll give you up and down arrows. And there's step attributes. So if I said how much money do you think you should make, and we had $10,000 through $100,000, and it went up by, let's say, $10,000 each time, that would be the step. Range, all right, which is like using number, but it's using the slider control and not up and down arrows. Date, all right, which you can set up to have a pop-up calendar. It's kind of nice. Or up and down arrows. And time, again, very similar, but with up and down arrows. Autofocus, we've talked about before. When the program begins its run, what form field do you want to have the focus? Or in other words, have the cursor blinking at, and that'd be the one. Placeholder, we've talked about before what placeholder text is. So the example that you see right here is fairly simplistic. You can see there's an example of the autofocus, the type of email, another one with a type of tel with a placeholder on it. In this particular example, the email was not formatted in a correct manner, so you get the associated error message. And as I mentioned here on the bottom of the page, many of the HTML input controls provide for basic data validation. You can always also use the HTML attributes shown in the next figure for data validation. All right. The HTML and CSS features for data validation. You'll notice when we look in here, we've talked about required before. That literally does make the field required. Title, which basically will take the field and display a tooltip when your mouse hovers over it. Pattern, and we'll have a later pattern in the book where we'll talk about regular expressions in more detail, but allows you to put in an expression to validate field entry accuracy, correctly or not. No validate for people who've got JavaScript turned off, and autocomplete, which some people love and some people hate. All right, then the CSS equivalents in here for colon required, colon valid, and colon invalid. All right, a couple of examples. Again, this one doesn't have an area code in there, so you get that error. Two of the reasons why you need JavaScript for data validations, because in many ways HTML is limited. The input controls and attributes may not be implemented the same way on all browsers. And as it says, for instance, HTML5 can't check whether one field is equal to another. So if you wanted to validate a password in a password again field. And it also cannot add, can't make certain checks like the state code that they mentioned in here as well. All right. Okay, so how to use jQuery to work with forms then? Here are the associated selectors. You'll notice that all of them begin with a colon. All right, and they're basically all of your form fields. So if you want to be able to validate something using jQuery, remember you use val and not value in here. And here, according to this, you can use trim. All right. So when we look in here, as it says, the jQuery methods, notice for getting and setting. And we talked about this before. If something appears on the right-hand side of an equal sign, it's a get. And when you get something like this, it's a set. You don't put it on the left-hand side. There is no equal sign. Another get and more gets. All right. So as it says, jQuery provides special selectors for selecting controls on a form. And again, the val for getting the value and trim. And I thought that JavaScript supported trim as well. Why it's not working, I don't really know. The event methods for forms, some of these, really all of these we've talked about already. Focus, which is where you want the cursor to be when you move from one field to another. So if I move from field 1 to field 2, a blur event occurs in field 1 and a focus event occurs in field 2. Change is typically used with like select elements. So if you got a drop-down list and you're changing from one to the other. Select, as it says, if you want to select all of the text in a text box or a text area. And submit. What do you want to have happen when the form is indeed submitted? And again, there are some examples here as well. And the author says on the bottom of the page, you can use event handlers for the focus, blur, change, and select events to process data. You can use the event handler for the click event of a regular button, not a submit button, to validate the data in a form. So in other words, if you had 10 fields to validate, you might not want to use or at least send a message to your submit button until all 10 had validated. You can use an event handler for any submit event on a form to validate data before it's sent to the server. Then if any data is valid, you can do the prevent default method to keep the actual default method of having a button, pressing a button, having it go somewhere, stop. All right. The chapter ends with this validation example. So if we look at the interface on the next page here, you'll notice that there are three field sets in here with each have their own legend. All right. So the legend registration information is for the field set with email address, password, and verify password. The legend member information is for the field set that has the membership type with radio buttons, individual or corporate, the company name, first name, last name, and phone number. And the field set with submit your membership has got the two buttons in it. Now, when you look at the current input that's in there, you'll notice that the first field is an invalid email address because there's no .com or .org or .net, etc. The second one says we didn't make a password that was long enough because it's supposed to be at least 6 characters. The third one says we didn't match or we didn't check to make sure that the first the password and the verify password were the same. Next, you'll notice that we've got here in our radio buttons individual chosen. Since individual is chosen, in here this text box is grayed out, or it's disabled, or the enabled is set to false. Here, if we chose that one, the enabled would be true. These two are fine. Here there's nothing in there, so you just say this field is required. Not really a whole heck of a lot new in the HTML. We've given the form an ID, and we set up some placeholders. And as far as the JavaScript, notice we've set this to checked. In other words, it is defaulting to an individual membership type. And the company stuff is disabled. Not a heck of a lot of JavaScript and jQuery in here, but you'll notice in what they're showing here is if the radio button changes, all right, we want disabled to be set to false or disabled to be set to true. And a lot of the code they show on this slide right here is very reminiscent of the kind of code that you write when you're doing validation with jQuery. So notice they are coming in here and they're trimming the email. Then they're saying if it's empty, the field is required. Otherwise, if it doesn't match the pattern that's right here, it says must be a valid email address. Here we're setting the company name. And again, if this didn't work, we do the event.prevent default to keep the natural action from happening. All right, that's it for the first chapter, and I'm just going to take 5 before I go into the next chapter, which is chapter 11, and it's on the jQuery plugins and the UI widgets. So I'll be back in just a couple moments. All right, then let's start on chapter 11. And it's on how to use jQuery plugins and UI widgets. 2 things to quickly check on here. Number 1 is if I go out and Google basically jQuery plugins, you'll notice that one of the first things to come up will be the jQuery plugin registry. Now, it looks like it's not totally active anymore. It's not taking new stuff. But if I add these, what do we got here? That's about 1,200, 1,500, 1,800, 2,000, 2,200, 2,400, 2,600, 2,800. It's somewhere around, if I added all these up, I just did it roughly, around 3,000 different built-in jQuery programs or mini programs that you can use and bring into your application that you're creating. Now, not only are there all these in the plugin registry here, but if you go out, free jQuery plugins and tutorials, jQuery script, how to create a basic plugin. All right. Plus, we've got the jQuery UI out here. And I think I counted before that there's 31 different things that you can also use. That's what the chapter is basically about. Okay, so let's just take it from the top. And you'll notice it's split into 4 sections: an introduction to jQuery plugins, followed by how to use 3 of the most popular plugins, followed by an introduction to the jQuery UI, and finally how to use 5 of the most popular jQuery UI widgets. All right, so let's do this. A plugin right there, they define, it says it's just a jQuery application that does one web task or a set of related web tasks. But the idea is rather than you having to reinvent the wheel, you can grab a plugin that somebody else has written and tested, etc. When you go out to look at these plugins, a lot of it is just common sense as far as if I go and I'm going to download a plugin and I've got two versions of it, one has got 1,000,000 downloads and one has 37 downloads, I'm probably going to take the one with 1,000,000. All right. And as it says, plugins make use of the jQuery library, and most can be used with a limited knowledge of JavaScript and jQuery. It's the same idea that I mentioned the other day, and that is interface versus implementation. If you understand the interface and how to actually use something, bring it up on screen or whatever, you don't have to understand the nitty-gritty or the details as to why it works. All right. And they give an example here, I think, with a rotator. And they say that if you're going to check for a rotator plugin, put the word jQuery in front of it, because there are other languages that provide plugins as well. Now, they give you a couple websites to check out here. All right. And I already showed you the first one, the jQuery plugin registry. In this chapter, we talk about Lightbox. We talk about the BX slider. And I'm going to talk in the end about the jQuery validation. So, as the author mentions here, plugins again are JavaScript applications that extend the jQuery functionality. They require the use of the core jQuery library. So if you're going to use a plugin, you must first download jQuery and make sure you do that above where you download the plugin. Plugins are available for hundreds of different web functions, such as, but not limited to, slideshows, carousels, tabs, menus, data validation. Some of the websites that provide jQuery plugins, again, are listed above, but you can also Google to find more. There are people who make a living, or at least part of their living, by creating individual plugins for people. All right. In general, if you can find a plugin to do what you want, it's better than writing it yourself. Saves you time and possibly some futility. All right. How to use any jQuery plugin. All right. Now, a lot of times when you use jQuery plugins, and they mention this right here, it may require that you download some HTML and some CSS and some JavaScript. All right. It says usually you can do this as you evaluate the plugin to determine what it does and if indeed it's everything that you need for what it is you're supposed to do. Secondly, they mention on here, you usually download the files for the plugin and save them on your web server. Well, you can save them on your local machine too. The download is often a zip file, which includes one or more JavaScript files. May also include CSS and image files. The download may include, so this is for the plugin, may include two versions of the main JavaScript file for the plugin. In other words, either a minimal or minimized one or a non-minimized. For some plugins, the files are also available using a CDN, which means you don't have to download them at all. Just link to them. Next, if a plugin requires one or more CSS files, code those CSS files in the head element. Next, if the download includes a folder for images, you need to make sure the image has the right relationship with CSS and JavaScript files. In other words, you have to make sure they can find them, find your images. Fifth, the author mentions here, you code the HTML and CSS for the plugin. And sixth, you code the JavaScript and jQuery for the plugin, whatever you need. Because typically it'll give you most everything you want, but there might be some starter stuff or there might be something you can or want to do to customize. They mention, it says, some plugins do not work with the latest version of jQuery. They're known basically as legacy plugins. They were created a while ago. So as it says, if your plugin doesn't work, you can check the documentation because you might have to go to an earlier version of jQuery to actually get that plugin to work if that's your goal. So these are the general steps. I've kind of gone over them already. The first one might sound simplistic, but it's true. Study the plugin to make sure it's doing what you want. Then check and see if the plugin's available on the CDN. If it is, link to it. If it's not, download whatever you need. Again, in the head, code the link elements to the CSS file. At the end of the body, code the script elements for the JavaScript files. If your plugin has an images folder, again, make sure that it's set up correctly so that your CSS can see it, and so can your JavaScript. Then code any necessary HTML and CSS for the page. And if necessary, code any JavaScript and jQuery for the page. All right, so they show an example right here. They give you a couple cautions I've already mentioned. The first one there, as you can see, make sure to include a script element for jQuery before the script element for the plugin. And the other thing about some of them don't work with the newest version of jQuery, which we already talked about. All right. Lightbox may be the most popular plugin for jQuery that there is. Typically with Lightbox, you've got a series of one or more thumbnails, and when you click on an individual thumbnail, you get a bigger version. All right, now you probably already get that, but just in case you don't. All right, I'm going to show you something that I'm working on with my afternoon class, and it's not using jQuery, but the idea is the same. All right, so let me bring this up. And again, I think you all get it anyway, and that's fine. All right, and that is if I come up and run this program that I'm currently have on my screen, and there's problems with it right now, so don't let the interface scare you or anything. But you'll notice on here that if I come in here and I type in all right, I get a bunch of different stuff in here, and if I click on one of these images, in fact, it's the link here, I get a bigger picture of the image. All right, so that's the equivalent of what you'd be doing. Of course, it isn't the exact same thing, but it is an equivalent. All right, let's keep going here. So there's the URL for Lightbox, and they give you a simplistic example. I know a few years ago I had, there was a woman who was running a pet, for lack of better words, kind of a pet hospice. And she asked if I would do a website for her. And I did. And she didn't like it. And the main reason she didn't like it is I did it all in CSS, HTML, and JavaScript, and she was too hard. She didn't want to have to learn that stuff. Okay? So I used another package to do it. And she liked that one because a lot of it was more even more built-in stuff. All right? But I had Lightbox in it. She had about 30 pictures of her pets, and I got 30 thumbnails, and when you clicked on them, that would bring up a really big image of them as well. So as it says, the Lightbox plugin can be used to display larger versions of thumbnail images. When the user clicks on a thumbnail within a set of images, the browser darkens the rest of the page and displays that image with a caption, if you indeed have one. The Lightbox download includes a CSS file, a plugin file, and an images folder. The HTML consists of image elements within links. All right, the source of each identifies the thumbnail image, and the href identifies the larger image. The Lightbox attribute activates the plugin, and the title attribute sets the caption. So another popular one is this BX slider. You'll notice it's pretty much for setting up carousels. So the idea is if you click here, you'll go from one slide to the other. So as it mentions here, the BX slider plugin makes it easy to develop a carousel. The HTML specifies an unordered list, with one list item for each slide. Okay. Cycle 2 is yet another plugin. All right. Whether it's a good thing or a bad thing to have a lot of different possibilities. All right. I mean, if I go back here to the jQuery plugin registry, I don't know how to search for it right here, but no, there's slider. All right. There's no carousel, it's just slider. But you'll notice 172 different versions. So there's a lot of them in here that you can work your way through. All right. The jQuery UI, again, we've already talked about that. As I mentioned, there's about 31 things in here, and a terrific place to start here is to go into Effect and start working your way down through the different effects here. So, for example, if you want to see blind, all right, watch how this kind of comes down like a shade. Here we go, or up in that case. And with all these, you can even download the entire jQuery UI if that's what you want. When you do this, you've got choices. So you can come in here and you can tell it to put in everything, or you can just choose the ones that you're interested in. So again, a lot of different ways that this stuff can be done. So the jQuery UI, as it says, is a free open source JavaScript library that extends the use of the jQuery library by providing higher level advanced features that you can use with a minimum amount of code. All right. They mention the term widgets in here, and widgets are basically the controls, as they mentioned, like accordions, tabs, and date pickers. Themes are basically the coloring, the fonts, etc., that are going to be used. So again, this is the UI website. I've already shown it to you. As it says, the 4 types of features here that are provided. There are widgets, accordions, tabs, etc. Themes, there's 25 themes. You can also do what's called roll your own theme, which means that you can customize and make your own theme. So maybe you wanted to include something from different themes or whatever, or just come up and make your own brand new one. Interactions, as you can see, draggable, droppable, resizable, and none, and effects. Color animations, class transitions, and none. So again, as mentioned here, this is an open source JavaScript library that extends jQuery. It says it can be thought of as, I wouldn't say the official plugin library, I would say an official plugin library. All right, if you do want to go to the trouble of downloading everything, they show you this. They go through the steps here on page 341. Kind of what I just showed you. From the home page, click the download link, then select or deselect anything you want or don't want. After you've done that, as it says, select the theme or design a custom one, then click download, and you'll get the files you want or need. All right, I'm not going to sit and read any of this to you, but I'm going to leave it up there for just a second. All right, now when I taped this the first time, it was about 2 hours and 10 minutes. It looks like it's going to be a little less now, as it's 1 hour and 50 minutes. But you are getting the same information. Maybe I talk faster. I don't really know. All right. So how to use any jQuery UI widget. So they go through the steps. Okay, and here's an example with the accordion. I've already mentioned this to you, and I've done this, but I'm going to do it again anyway, just so you can see it. And that is, I'm going to go over here, and let's grab that one. We'll grab that accordion. So I'm going to go to the UI, and I'm going to back up, and I'm going to find accordion. There it is. All right. So this is, again, what it does. All right. I'm going to go down to View Source. I'm going to grab every bit of HTML that's in here, 70 lines, copy it to the clipboard. We're going to do this just quick, okay? So I'm going to call this accordion demo in a folder. And in here, I'm going to put in an index.html file. And I'm going to open it. I'll use a simple editor, which is Notepad++. So there it is. All right. And you can see, again, it's less than 70 lines. All right. And it's got a bunch of stuff in it. Now, you have to be leery when you're doing this. Notice here it says //code/resources. I don't have those. So I may have to go out and actually, if I want to use those, I may have to go out and find where they are. Now, typically, it's not that tough, though. All right, so if I come out here, where are we? Right there. All right, I'm just going to leave it there the way it is. In fact, we'll put an HTTPS in front of that. All right, and I don't know if that'll help find them or not find them. I don't really know. But the other thing is, when I come in here, what you should have already, or hopefully what you already noticed, is all the JavaScript or jQuery is right here. That's everything. Now we're adding jQuery and the jQuery UI, but that is everything I need. So I'm going to grab that. I'm going to just do a file. In fact, let's open it up. Accordion demo. We'll open it up with code. Okay, I'm going to do a file. Once I get it up, come on. Are you kidding me? There it is. That's everything. All right, I'm going to do a file, save all, and I'm going to run this. Now I've done nothing but copy code, and you'll notice it works just fine. Now I believe that this one is set up. Yeah, see, you can't have none open. So one has got to be open all the time. But, again, you'd have to do a little bit of work to change that, but you've got a working accordion now without having to really do any code or put in any code yourself. All right, let's finish this up. So as it says, to use a jQuery UI widget, you code the HTML and the jQuery for the widget. In the jQuery, you code a selector, the method to be used, and the options. The selector in mind was the accordion, all right, that had an ID of accordion, and the method was also called accordion. For a widget that requires images, jQuery UI expects the CSS file and images folder to be at the same level. In other words, the CSS should be able to see the images, so to speak. 5 of the most popular, I just showed you the accordion. All right. So they even give you another example you could use in here. And we've already seen an FAQ page where we had the HTML basically was an H3, all right, and we had divs that had paragraphs in them. So you've seen this already. All right, the JavaScript and jQuery code use the accordion method. All right, so we're using a jQuery method to do this as opposed to writing it ourselves, which is what we did earlier. All right, a panel is open, so that's each one of those areas. All right, it says at least one panel must be open and all panels open to the same size, but you can go in and there's options for the accordion method that you can change that. All right, the CSS file provides basic formatting, but again, you could use your own style sheet as well. The tabs, Remember, you've only got a limited amount of real estate or room on your web page. In fact, with that example that we looked at earlier, that one that had the thing about the room reservation, they redo it, I believe, in chapter 11. So they use tabs. All right. So rather than having 3 different field sets with legends, you take each field set and put it in its own tab. All right. So as they mentioned, the HTML is a div that consists of an unordered list that represents the tabs. The heading for each tab is in an anchor element within the li element of the list. The JavaScript and jQuery code use the tabs method to implement this. By default, as it says, you can switch to a tab by clicking on its header. The button and dialog widgets. All right, this is a modal button in here or a modal dialog. Again, on the example that I mentioned before, when they redo the reservation page, it comes up with a modal dialog like the one you see here when it first starts. This could be anything like, maybe a very short subset of the rules and regulations for a place where you've got to click something to go on, or it might just be informative. Hey, just so you know, we'll ask you for cookies or whatever. So as they mention here, the HTML for a button widget can be an input element with button, submit, reset, radio, or checkbox. The HTML for a dialog widget is a div element with the contents for the dialog box. To prevent it from appearing when the page loads, set the display to none. Done that before more than once. The JavaScript and jQuery use the button method to activate the button widget. jQuery UI provides many options for dialog widgets. And by default, the dialog box must be or is resizable and draggable. But again, you can change those any way you want to, or need to change them. The date picker, we've talked about this one before. It's very nice if you write an application for someone where you're allowing them to, for example, set appointments. The date picker is very nice. You can implement the date picker with a time picker as well. So if this was the thing for, if this was some kind of an application for appointments and they chose May 20th, and once you clicked on it, you could open it up and you could show the 3 times for appointments there. All right, I know that when I go out and get service on my car, I get something like this. So, as they mentioned, the HTML for a date picker specifies a text box. The JavaScript and jQuery implement it by calling the date picker method on the text box. By default, when the user moves the focus into the text box, the browser displays the date picker widget and selects today's date. And again, there's other things that you can set up, and I mentioned some of them in here. That's it. So again, the one that we're going to work on as a class, just so you know, the plan is at least, is this gym website. All right. Tomorrow, I hope I'm going to give you some of the HTML and some we'll do together. I mean, like the contact form is like 300 lines. It's way too much for people to type, but you'll have something like this. I'll give you all the text that goes in here as well. And we'll do that and the CSS tomorrow. Then we'll go in and we'll do the about, which will allow us to do this. The FAQ, which will allow us to do this. The BMI, which we pretty much have already gone over, and the contact page. And with the contact, you'll notice virtually everything, almost everything in here is mandatory. You click that, you get error messages, and as you start putting information in and you click again, the error message goes away. So that's what we will work on tomorrow. Again, I'd like to get done as much of the HTML and CSS as possible. and then we can look at the associated JavaScript on Wednesday. All right. I'm even trying to, if I can, find my old code, look for a couple more examples of this so you can see again how some of this stuff is used. Then next week, we'll go over as much of the rest of the book as we can. The following week, the week of the 20th, again, I've got vacation time from 2022. I know we're in 2023, but if I don't use my vacation time by the end of the year, I don't get paid for it. So I talked to Evan Gudmested, my boss, and he's agreed to let me off Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, November 20th, 21st, and 22nd. So Thanksgiving week will be lab all week. Then once we get back, December 1st, December 8th, and December 15th, which are 3 consecutive Fridays, I'm also going to be taking off. I'll remind you of all this stuff again later. Finally, the last thing again that I will tell you is this Friday, November 10th, there are no classes, and there are no classes because we have because Rankin is closed to commemorate Veterans Day. That's all I have. You can see this was about 2 hours and 1 minute. Earlier, it was 2 hours and 10 minutes, so pretty much is a wash, except that I had to spend 4 hours doing a 2-hour lecture. That's okay. Talk to you tomorrow. Have a great rest of the day. Bye.